Hi everybody, it's Abe Cerezo here, and last time I spoke with you guys, I said that I would do a question kind of thing that you guys have sent in. I have three here that I think I have time for today, so I figured I would do some of that right now. So this first one was it asked, why is anger bad? Oh, I never said anger is bad. Anger can actually be the underlying force that helps you get stuff done, right? But the problem with showing your anger in unhealthy ways is what I speak about quite often. And unhealthy anger is like the yelling, screaming, spitting, throwing punches, things like that, right? So if we want to get good at regulating our emotions and staying focused on what we need to be doing, then we won't spend an awful lot of time having the hissy fit. Does that make sense? What we will end up doing is to make sure that we spend a lot of that time coming up with plans of action when adversity strikes, when something weird happens or something goofy happens, right? And we can speak more about that, but I never said it was unhealthy, and I never said it was bad. I did say how you respond could be healthy or unhealthy, and when you are getting angry and throwing fits and hurting yourself and hurting others, that's very unhealthy. Okay, so let's go on to the second question. Abe, thinking it through isn't practical sometimes. That doesn't sound like a question, but I kind of get what you're saying. Thinking it through is preparing for what could possibly happen. Let me give you a for instance, shall I? In my job before, I worked with felons and ex-felons that were coming out of prison, and some of them did not know how to deal with coming out into the public. So they're used to being abrupt and gruff and mean and things of that nature, but it was only to keep them safe while they're in prison, right? But when they came out, they had to learn a different way of being so they can be healthier around the family members who wanted to see them, and when they're getting a job, when they're moving themselves back into society. And so what we did is that we practiced ways of dealing with stuff that might make them upset, right? Because the way they got upset inside, they would, slam things down, get angry, show some type of aggressive emotion to keep themselves safe. Well, that's not needed so much out in the real world. We have to be able to play the civilized world by using words and using little quirks here and there to keep yourself going. And so, one time, this one fella, we'll call him John. And John was getting so upset that he started yelling at me. And I was like, well, okay, let's tone it down a little bit so that I can understand you. He did not understand that at all. As a matter of fact, he started yelling louder, right? I said, whoa, let's talk a little bit here about what you're trying to get me to understand. And so he took a couple of seconds, thought about it, and rephrased it. What I'm trying to say, Abe, is this. And he started explaining it to me. Well, that was a lot better than him coming off like yelling at me, trying to get his point across. See, we have to make sure that we're dealing with something on the same level. We don't want to be speaking way down here when a person is way over here thinking of something different. You want to bring them to our own level. And when we talk together that way, you get more accomplished. For instance, that same fella wanted to learn how to speak to his daughter that he hasn't seen and probably since she was born. And so that was like 14 years later. So the child's a teenager. And I said, what if your child disowns you, doesn't even want to talk to you? I know you're going to be upset, I know you're going to be sad, but how do you usually respond? He says, well, I'd probably get mad. I said, well, okay, well, let's come up with another response. Let's respond differently, right? And so we practiced it, and we practiced it. And let me tell you what we practiced. I said, I still love you. I never stopped loving you. And I said, just practice that in your head. For that time may come when you get a chance to speak with her, and she might just diss you, just be away from you, didn't want to be around you at all. And then you can either write it or you can say it out loud. My suggestion, write it down first. And then rehearse it. Who says rehearsing that is not a healthy thing? It's important to rehearse how things can be. right? So we practiced that, and check this out. This is the best part about it. He really did get a chance to meet again his daughter, and the daughter was kind of like we practiced. wasn't even lukewarm to him. Was kind of cold, you know. I mean, she was 14 by now, so she wasn't really kind of jiving with him and things like that. And he says, you know, he said this, according to him, he said this to her that he wanted to learn more about her, and he still loves her, and he wanted to make sure that he has somewhere along the line where he's able to contact her, be around her, and have some type of communication. And you know, a few weeks after that conversation, how that happened, and what happened there, they ended up having a pretty decent relationship. Matter of fact, a few weeks ago, I think it was at the beginning of May, so I guess we're a month away because now it's June. In May, he sent me a text saying that he has his first time taking her out to ice cream by herself. And so, I mean, things do happen when you rehearse, when you practice your emotional regulation instead of getting all upset because something hit you sideways, right? Well, I got time for one more. This was like, what are some of my triggers to anger? So I'll be honest. I drive like everybody else does, and I don't really like when people cut me off or don't signal or anything. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. I do get upset behind the wheel, but I practice something. Instead of like getting upset and pushing on the gas pedal, I take my foot off the gas and coast a little bit, let them get further away from me. I practice that. That's one of my triggers. The other trigger is when people are rude and disruptive, right? I teach classes and people can be rude. It's kind of like a heckler. and that really gets my goat. That really gets me deep under my skin. And I usually smile about it and say, oh, well, come on over here and show me what you're talking about. And usually, you know, if I'm teaching a class or something, or when someone's rude to me in the store or somewhere else or something like that, says, oh, you know, I'm sorry, having a rough day. Have a great day. Take care. I just move along. I don't sit there and have a conversation. I just move right along. So there you have. You have a couple of my triggers and what I do for it, because I actually practice those. My wife and I practice those together, and she tells me if I'm believable or not, and I just think that's funny because she says, Abe, you're a horrible actor. And I'm like, well, you're probably right, but I'm trying really hard to get better at it so I don't have an adverse effect to somebody, or I'd want to, like, you know, strangle them or punch them or whatever, right? So we have to maintain that part of our lives so that we have a better life. We have to look forward to what we want to have happen in our lives, not always get stuck in the stuff that was so horrible that you can't get it out of your mind, right? So in the next few weeks, I'll be putting out certain things called, and some people talk about brain spotting to help with like traumatic incidences, right? And there's other one called CRM, right? Comprehensive Research Model. So if you've never heard of these, I suggest you go ahead and look them up. We'll talk a little bit about that in the next video. But thank you very much for spending your time with me. And I hope these questions were pertinent to you, I guess. But if you have any other questions, feel free to comment below, or just, you know, call or text my number that's posted. We'll talk soon. All right? Take care.